Ingles.fm, Real English Conversations, Series 1. Podcast 3, Job Hunting, Buscando Trabajo. Este podcast contiene una conversación real y sin guión entre dos hablantes nativos de inglés, Mark y Tom. Oirás primero la conversación y a continuación una clase de inglés con explicaciones en español. Cada podcast viene con un workbook detallado que puedes descargar desde nuestra página web Ingles.fm. Incluye una transcripción completa de la conversación, listas de vocabulario, notas culturales y la clase. Recuerda que los miembros de nuestra lista de distribución reciben gratis transcripciones extra de nuestros podcasts, además de muchas otras cosas gratis. Así que no olvides apuntarte al consultar la página. ¡Buena suerte!
Hi, my name's Tom and I'm sitting here with Mark again. Hi Mark.
Hi Tom.
Today we're talking to you from Ciutadella Park in Barcelona. It's a very windy day and it's very hot, so we're sitting under a tree right by the zoo, aren't we?
Yes, we are trying to find some shade.
And you might better hear all the children in the zoo playing behind us, so we hope it's not too distracting. Anyway, today's podcast is about job hunting, which is quite a relevant topic at the moment, isn't it? Why is that?
Well, at the moment there's an economic recession. It's particularly affecting Spain. So there are many people out of work and many people looking for work.
Yeah, so job hunting is high on the agenda this summer in Spain. It's also called the crisis in English. I think that's fairly similar to the Spanish word, isn't it?
Yeah, they use the same.
So can you give us some statistics for unemployment at the moment in Spain?
In Spain at the moment, the unemployment rate is roughly 22%, which equates to 4 million people out of work.
And that's 22% of the working adult population, isn't it?
Yes, of potential workforce.
And how does that compare to the UK at the moment?
Well, the UK, I understand, is just coming out of recession with a larger population. The UK is now 7.8% of the workforce unemployed, which is still 2.47 million people with no work.
Which is pretty high for England as well, isn't it?
I think it's one of the highest rates of unemployment for a number of years.
And what are the results of that? For example, in England, how have things changed because of the high unemployment?
Well, many businesses have closed, especially where my parents live in rural England. Many pubs, traditional English pubs, have closed, because with the anti-smoking laws that came into effect and the job insecurity, many people are not going to drink in pubs now. They are preferring to drink in friends' houses and buy beer, wine, spirits from the supermarket. So with no customers, the combined effect has been many, many pub closures, and many people have had their houses repossessed because without a job, they haven't been able to keep up the mortgage repayments, and the banks have reclaimed their houses.
Yeah, so according to the statistics, there were, for example, 13,200 house repossessions in the first quarter of 2009, and that's actually dropped this year. It's down to just under 10,000, isn't it, in 2010?
Yep.
So things are hopefully improving a bit.
But it's still looking pretty dire at the moment across the board, because with people looking for work, we're finding that there are more people looking for fewer jobs because the recession is far from over, although it's improving slightly in the UK.
Yeah, and in the UK, we say you are on the dole if you're unemployed. Now, sorry, that was a noisy bunch of parakeets flying over our head. In the UK, we say you're on the dole if you're unemployed. Now, what are the conditions? What's it like being on the dole in the UK?
It's pretty horrific. If you have worked and you lose your job through redundancy, for example, then you are entitled to state benefit, or dole. But that payment is, on average, around £60 a week. That means that your salary can drop from £1,000, £2,000 a month to about £200-250 a month.
And there are various other benefits, aren't there, in England? Like they separate it. You get housing benefit if you're paying rent on a house, and if you have children, you can get sort of a parenting benefit. I've forgotten the name.
I think child benefit.
Child benefit, yeah. And so they pay these kind of set of benefits depending on your circumstances.
However, the problem being that it's not the same as a salary. The idea is for people to be on the dole as a cushion, but use that as an incentive to find a job. But in these circumstances, there are very few jobs, so people are on the dole longer, and their standard, their quality of living is going down and down the longer they're on the dole, because they still have financial commitments to meet.
And how does it compare to Spain? Because they have a totally different system here, don't they?
Spain's is completely different. In the UK, this dole, at various degrees, is available for everyone. So, for example, 16, 18-year-old leaves school with no immediate work, they would be entitled to claim some benefit from the state as a living expense. Mm-hmm. In Spain, they have a system called paro, which is similar, but every month you pay a percentage of your salary depending on the amount you earn. The percentage varies, but you pay into a kind of fund, like a private saving fund with Social Security. Now, if you find yourself unemployed, you have the fixed amount of money at your disposal. So you can more or less expect to claim 80% of your previous salary, and the length of time you can claim that depends on the amount of time you are working and paying into the fund.
Okay, well that sounds fairly complicated to me, but anyway, in terms of lifestyle, if you're on the dole, if you compare, say, London to being on the dole in London compared to being on the dole in Spain, which would be better?
I would say Spain, definitely, because to get 80% of your salary for 12 months means you have a year, more or less, to find a job. But if overnight you're going from £2,000 a month net income to £250 a month, okay, you may get that indefinitely, but your life changes very dramatically.
Yeah, and what of our personal experiences of being on the dole in London? I know that I, for one, spent a period on the dole in, I don't know when it was, 1996 after university, and I was trying to live on £40 a week then, and I couldn't really leave the house in London because the transport in London is quite expensive. So whenever you leave, Mark was saying earlier on, for example, to go to a job interview, you might spend 10% of your weekly money just to get the bus or the train to your interview. So it doesn't encourage people to go out job hunting, does it?
No, and it also encourages a black market economy. There's a lot of benefit fraud where people are claiming their entitlements, never having worked legally, but would be doing cash-in-hand work, for example, labouring on building sites, pizza delivery drivers, maybe minicab drivers, so working in informal jobs, but being paid cash-in-hand while claiming money from the state, in order to have a standard of living that is above the hand-to-mouth bread and water that £40 a week provides.
And we both job hunted in Australia. Can you briefly tell me what it was like there? I know that I've got most of my jobs just through applying directly through websites or directly to companies. You spent some time job hunting in Australia as well. How was that?
A different experience, because you normally have to apply through a recruitment agency, and a vast majority of companies there would outsource their recruitment to an agency. And because of the number of foreign tourists, young people on a working holiday visa, which entitles them to 1 year in Australia and to work. So millions of people go there, but they can only work for 3 months of the year. So it's very difficult to get your foot in the door and get your first job with an agency. But after that, more or less, if you do a good job, you can continue rolling these 3-month temporary contracts.
Okay. Sorry, I was just going to interrupt because we're running out of time, but lastly I just wanted to ask about salaries. How do the salaries in the UK and Australia and Spain compare?
They're very, very different. When I was applying for serious permanent positions in telecommunications in Australia, often they would ask at the interview what my salary expectations were. But having never worked in telecommunications in Australia, I had no idea, because the salary was not advertised on the job description. So I would take my English salary, multiply it by the exchange rate into Australian dollars, and quote a salary that made the interviewer's jaw drop, because it was in excess of senior management and in some cases the managing director. So the big discrepancy.
Yeah, and in Spain it's we worked out about 50% on average lower than the UK, isn't it?
Yes.
Anyway, if you're job hunting at the moment, it's probably fairly difficult wherever you are, but don't lose hope. Keep going, you'll find that job eventually.
Good luck.
Hola, me llamo Rosario y en la clase de inglés de hoy vamos a centrarnos en la palabra pretty, que es una palabra súper útil en inglés. Normalmente, pretty se utiliza como adjetivo que significa atractivo o bonito, al referirnos a mujeres o a cosas que normalmente tienen las mujeres. Por ejemplo,
She's wearing a very pretty dress today. She's got such a pretty daughter.
Sin embargo, en la conversación, Mark y Tom usaron esta palabra de una manera mucho más diferente y muy habitual. Por ejemplo, cuando Mark dijo que hay 2,47 millones de personas sin trabajo en Inglaterra, Tom le respondió, "That's pretty high for England." En este caso, pretty es un adverbio y una manera muy coloquial de decir bastante, pero no demasiado. Aquí tenéis otro ejemplo. How was your weekend, Tom?
Pretty good, thanks. And yours?
Y otro ejemplo, esta vez en la forma negativa.
How was your interview last week?
Pretty bad. I don't think I'll get the job. Quizá os habréis dado cuenta de que en la conversación Mark usó pretty 2 veces. Al decir pretty dire, al hablar de la economía, dire significa muy muy malo, y pretty horrific, al describir no tener trabajo en el Reino Unido. En estos ejemplos, pretty significa de nuevo quite, pero se usa para suavizar el impacto de adjetivos muy fuertes como dire y horrific. Así que, en inglés, the economy is dire significaría que la economía está en una situación muy muy mala o terrible. Pero, the economy is pretty dire significa que la economía está mal, pero la situación no es tan mala como en el primer caso. Por último, en inglés también se dice pretty much, para querer decir apenas, casi o más o menos. Por ejemplo, have you read that book I gave you?
I've pretty much finished it. It's fantastic.
We hope you found this useful and pretty much understand how we use the word pretty.
Gracias por acompañarnos con este podcast de Ingles.fm. Recuerda que el workbook contiene una transcripción completa de la conversación, listas de vocabulario, notas culturales y la clase. Lo puedes descargar de forma instantánea desde Ingles.fm. ¡Nos vemos!